Neff.
Here.
Smock. Here. Ritterbush.
Here.
Keach.
Here.
Zobrist. Hopperly.
Here.
Doherty. DeWeese.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, it's time to review the minutes from our last meeting. Does anybody have comment or question about those? If not, entertain a motion to approve them.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Okay.
I'll second.
All
And a
in
second.
favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Approved.
Very good. All right, so we're now at the public hearing portion of our meeting, and we have 3 things to talk about today. And before we start that, I'm going to let our council give us a few comments,
Thank you.
instructions.
Public hearings are being held tonight pursuant to published notice. Any person wishing to make a comment to the Plan Commission will be afforded the opportunity to do so and will give their testimony under oath or affirmation. Any person living within 250 feet of a property at issue in a case who wishes to cross-examine a testifying witness may be afforded the opportunity to do so at the discretion of our chair. No member of the public may address the commission or cross-examine the applicant until recognized by our chair. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the Plan Commission will make a recommendation to the village board. The Plan Commission makes recommendations only. The village board is responsible for taking final action on these matters.
Thank you, sir. First item on the agenda tonight is petition number 21-02 SP. Subject property is located at 2216 North First Avenue. A petition has been filed by Michelle Peterson. Mrs. Peterson is requesting a special use at this property to permit a daycare center. Does the petitioner have any comments that they'd like to make? Okay, stand and be sworn or affirmed.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes.
If you state your name and where you live, that would be good.
All right. My name is Michelle Peterson. My husband and I reside at 101 Forest View out in Hyde Park. And I appreciate you allowing me the time to talk a little bit about a new venture that I am building from the ground up, what I'm calling Spark Academy of Morton. It is a new educational location for me to house a multitude of things. So my primary focus and my kind of age category I am looking at is preschool ages 3 to 5. But I want to also offer enrichment for kind of that same age group. So I'm looking at art, Spanish, music, STEM, language, and just offer something that our community doesn't necessarily have access to at the moment. If there is anybody that has tried to get your child on a list for preschool in the Morton area, it is incredibly hard. We have some high quality options, but they're like Fantasyland is coveted, but if you don't put your child on the list when they're in the womb, then you do not get a spot. So my children, I have 2 older children who had a great preschool experience in their locations. And just as I've gone along, I've just kind of started dreaming up what I wish was available to our community. And so with that, I grabbed Trisha Yorty and started looking at some properties in town to see if the vision in my head kind of matches, a property location in town. So just a little bit about me, so you know my background and my qualifications. I'm currently an assistant principal at Morton 709 Lincoln. I have been in education my whole life. I started babysitting when I was 12 and had a pretty steady income through high school just taking care of kids in my neighborhood. I went on to the University of Texas at Austin to gain my elementary education degree and then taught elementary education for 7 years. I have a degree in educational leadership from Bradley, and I've been in administration now. This is my 9th year. And this fall, I'm starting my doctorate at ISU in pre-K-12 general administration. So this is my passion and my lifeblood. I come from a long line of actually educators and entrepreneurs. So this is kind of the perfect collision of starting from the ground up on the business side of things, I've had to learn a lot, especially from my father, who that's all he ever did. And then my mom was a lifelong educator along with my grandma and things like that. So I just want you to know a little bit about what my mission is at Spark. At Spark, I'm working to ignite a brighter future, focusing on enrichment programs for ages 3 to 5. I strongly, firmly believe that through hands-on play-based instruction, giving children experiences at an early age is critical to their success further down the road in life. I've seen that in all of my years working in elementary education, just the difference between the child who has had an enriched play-based experience coming into the school. They are way more well-equipped, whether that's from a parent at home or from a school-based program. They are just way more equipped for school. So with that, 3 weeks ago, I threw it out on social media because I just wanted to kind of see what was out there before I presented to you. And in 3 weeks, I put out a registration form for parents to give me the names of their children, their ages, what programming they're interested in. And I currently, well, as of last night, I had over 60 families on my registration list. 15 of those for full 5-day-a-week preschool. And then the rest of them are excited about either a partial preschool or what I'm calling developmental play or enrichment programming. And then I have to give a shout out to my husband, because one thing we would like to occasionally offer, not every night, but occasionally offer is a date night drop-in option for kind of your age 3 to 10-year-olds, to give parents the opportunity to go out in Morton and have a nice night out, or maybe you just need to go home and clean your house or sleep, and have some planned, structured, play-based activities. So moving on to the building that I am purchasing, I really want an atmosphere of a home environment. I want the kids at Spark to feel like they're coming into a wonderful home environment and not a commercial atmosphere. And so while I will be maintaining all life safety standards and following International Fire Code and all of that, that's kind of the feel I was going for, yet I don't want to do it out of my own personal home. And so that's why this building was so intriguing to me, because it has the feeling, it is an old house. It was set up as a salon, but it still has the floor plan of a house currently. I will be tearing down some walls, but then it has your full backyard space. It's a fully green backyard. There's a great tree with shade that I'll put some commercial playground equipment in the back. And then there's this garage space that I'm hoping to convert into a messy classroom. So for my art, for my science, for lab science, for things like that, to go and make a mess and be able to hose down the floor and have fun. So I'm working with Morton Community Bank with Tim Mueller. Schick Build, Jake Schick is going to do my renovation. Tim Newhauser has been guiding me as far as insurance. And then the one big catch with this building is the parking situation. And so I've been working with Dave Ullman and the Community United Church of Christ, and I have not yet signed because it's dependent on a special use agreement, but I do have a 5-year lease agreement ready to sign once all of my ducks are in a row with special use permit and I can use the building. Leanne Brown and Courtney Eaton were actually the ones who, after hearing all of my ideas, they were the ones that kind of threw this building at me, and Tricia took me through, and it seemed like a great fit. So we're going to be doing not a complete gut, but pretty much gut renovation to make an indoor playroom, which is the existing addition. The main house, the walls are going to be taken out to be one full classroom for 20 children. I have my backyard space to be able to play outside and do that, and then hopefully my outdoor messy space, classroom space. The front porch I want to close in for security purposes, to have a checkpoint for parents to check their kids in. And the parking is across the street, which we'll talk about that with traffic flow. No one will be in the basement except for storage, and I might have an office for myself to be able to lock up any files or records, things like that. It's really not usable space. And then the backyard is fully fenced in for a playground area, but I will be adding additional barriers so that kids can't easily get out of the backyard without assistance, just for safety. I think that's it. So traffic patterns. I know that this is one thing that I met with 3 members of the village, and this is one thing that they were slightly concerned about. My parking is directly across the street from the front door. So you walk out the front door, it's First Avenue, and then the parking is across the street. There are 17 spots, so there's ample parking for what I need. But one of the things I asked for in my special use permit was the potential ability to add a crosswalk between my building and the parking lot, just to give a visual, something visual for cars going through to recognize, and then I can put my staff out there with a stop arm during my busy, my morning drop off, my midday drop off, my afternoon drop off. My main operating hours will be 8:30 to 3:30. I'm hoping to stay within that so that my morning get to school traffic is done and gone by the time my families come in. And then 3:30 just to be able to get all my programming in. I want the opportunity in the future to be able to do lower elementary enrichment. So if I have my Spanish teacher for the day, they might run a 3 o'clock or 3:30 45-minute science or Spanish class for a small group of elementary kids. And so that might be on the docket, but my first goal is the preschool and enrichment. And then the occasional, if we did do like a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night date night drop-in for a couple hour period, from a 6 to 8 o'clock, something like that, for families to be able to drop their kids off and go, hopefully dine at our local restaurants and then come back and get their children. That's just one of the things we would like to be able to offer. So at this time, are there any questions for me? I am open to contingencies. I mean, it is not in a state at this moment for me to have kids walk in the door. I hope to be ready by next summer. And Jake Schick is the one that's kind of spearheading all of that. So are there any questions you have for me about my special use permit to have children in the building?
Any questions from the board?
So your drop-off and pickup plan, will parents be walking them from across the street in that parking lot, or do you foresee them dropping off in front of the building?
There's 2 things that I can do. So they could do street parking and the parking lot and be required to walk their children into the building. The houses, if you're facing the building, the houses to the right, none of those houses have driveways that come out the front. They're all rear driveways. So I could, in theory, have about 4 or 5 cars, maybe even 6, 7, where I could do a drop-off line where my staff is getting your child out of the car on the sidewalk side, on my building side, and get traffic through there. The flow into the parking lot, you would go into the parking lot and then out the back alleyway. It is public alley. It's paved, and so you can go either direction and get back to another point in town to keep kind of that flow going through. But
Are those parking spaces in front of there now, striped parking spaces?
they are not striped.
No.
No. There is parking on either side. There is space for parking and 2-way traffic, but there are no striped parking spots.
How many children or students do you foresee you would have at what's the maximum you would have at any one moment? And then would you have it where that same amount is like transitioning at the same time? Do you know what I mean?
So yes, I know exactly what you're saying. So I can have 20 in my head. I have 20 in the morning in preschool and 20 in the afternoon class section of preschool. And so looking at the use of my building, 30 is kind of the max. I mean, I did my schedule all the way out for the week, and at any given time, the max would be 30 cars transitioning in and out, but no 2 groups would overlap at the same time. Okay. So you would never have 60 people, even though my space would be 30.
Even on your drop-off
there
nights or whatever.
There would never be a moment where more than 30 cars. I literally did, okay, this many kids in, this many kids out, this many kids in, this many kids out. Like, where is my max? And 30 cars would be my max. Now, one of the families is the family directly across the street. They have a 2-year-old that will be 3 for preschool next fall, and they were like, hold on a second, when I was knocking on doors. You mean I can walk across? And I know there are quite a few families within those blocks that have said, I'm just going to walk. Like, if the weather's nice, I'm just going to walk. So I don't know with carpooling or, my mom takes care of my children and drops them off at stuff like this. But 30 is the max. If every kid brought their own car at the max time, that would be 30.
Okay.
So.
Is there a driveway close to the entrance, a drive entrance? I'm just thinking from a handicap accessibility standpoint, if you're going to need a curb cut and a handicap ramp there.
Well, that is one thing that Jake and I have talked about. There's a spot in the sidewalk in front of the property that comes straight out and it's curbed. We've talked about dropping that down to ramp it down to because there's a driveway. If you're looking at the building, the next house to the left, there is a driveway. But ideally, I would like it to ramp down in front of the building. So, and even thinking moms with strollers, even the mom across the street, if she's got another child, she's going to be pushing a stroller. So for even that concept, I would.
Well, you mentioned the crosswalk. I mean, assuming that the village was on board with the crosswalk, you'd probably line that up with that handicap ramp.
Yep, that is exactly where I would put the handicap ramp to then go to the crosswalk across to the parking lot.
Any other questions from the board? If not, thank you very much,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Peterson. And at this time, I'd like to ask if anybody from the public would like to make a comment about this project. You can raise your hand. Come forward if you would. You need to meet with our stenographer first.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Please state your name and address.
Dave Messer. I live at 214 North 2nd Avenue. I didn't hear I heard 30 cars. I didn't hear what is the maximum number of children that will be allowed at the location at one point in time.
Am I allowed to answer?
I think you could answer.
You just need to come back up to the microphone to answer that so that we keep our record.
Yeah.
$30. Does that answer your question?
I'm against it. I live in the neighborhood. The encroachment of businesses in a residential area is not a good thing for property values. I understand it was already a business. It was a business when I purchased my house a long time ago, but that was a business that would have 1 or 2 customers at a time, not 30 children. I had kids scream. All kids scream. 30 kids scream a lot. The extra traffic, I just don't think it's a good idea for the property values in the area. And if you have a business move in, now you can say, well, I've got a hairstylist here, I've got a daycare here. Why can't I put my business here? It's just one more business. It's just creeping into the neighborhood. That's all I have.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Yeah. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I'm Brian Davis. I own the property to the south, 212 North First, which is the house and the triplex that sit adjacent to this salon. Bought the property last year or so from Tim Ushan. Let me first say that I appreciate any type of, going after and starting a business, and especially a daycare business. My concern, and I don't live at this property, I just own it. I'm putting a lot of capital in this property right now to freshen up the place, increase revenues for myself, and to better the area per se. I mean, that triplex is a little run down, and you know, my capital is helping to fix that up. My concern with this is the traffic and the noise. And then there's another concern, but that's traffic and noise would be my initial concern. My tenants currently park on the street out in front of the property. I do have a 3-stall attached garage to the back of the triplex, and I also have a 2-stall garage for the house adjacent to the triplex as well. The alleyway is gravel, white rock. It's not maintained. They don't drag it every year. There's plenty of potholes back there. So there's the traffic is a real concern in terms of how it's going to be routed and how it's going to be managed in the mornings and drop-off times. And then the use of the alley and how the village is going to address that, you know, as it gets wore out. You know how gravel roads are. Once they get driven on multiple times, they start to erode. And then the noise aspect, you know, I got 2 kids. I went through the whole daycare process. I get it. I don't know how that's going to affect me moving forward with potential clients that live there. I have long-term people in there right now, and one of them is on 3rd shift. Will they move because of it? I don't know. I can't answer that. But it's hard for me to say, go ahead and do it. I love the idea just based on those 2 factors. So I'm with the other gentleman that I think the board should think hard about it. And again, I appreciate it. I just don't think it's the right fit for that type of business in that residential neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
My name's Chrissy Hitty, and I live at 219 North 2nd, directly behind the daycare center. While initially I was very excited for the building to be occupied again, to be taken care of, I'm a little concerned about the noise. I like to sit out on my back deck and enjoy the summer nights. And to hear that there might be date night drop-offs, and I love the idea, the concept though of your daycare. I really do. The idea of the academy, we do need something like that in Morton. I'm just concerned about what I read on the website about a $10 drop-off for outside playtime. I was concerned at how many hours that would be, and would people just be randomly dropping their kids off for $10 a day? That's a great deal. So my concern would be the noise and, like Dave said, the property value for sure. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Hi, I'm Valerie Messer. That's my husband, Dave. I live at 214 North 2nd. I think it's a great idea, too. We had 2 kids, went to Fantasyland. It was fabulous. Noise. I love to sit in the evening on my front porch, on my swing, and read. And the thought of the constant noise. We live close to Jefferson School, so we get that noise during the day, all day. Recess is in and out, in and out. So that school was there when we bought our house like 30 years ago. This is new, and it would be even evening noise. So, but I think your concept's great. I just wish it wouldn't be in our residential neighborhood. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Would it be appropriate to have Michelle respond to any of that, or?
Yes, the opportunity if she desires, or if the board has questions for her.
Yeah. So, Michelle, would you like to respond to any of the comments, or does the board have any other additional questions?
I have one.
Back to the mic, I'm sorry. Back to the microphone, just for our record. If he's gonna ask, you need to answer, it needs to be recorded. Sorry.
Okay.
He'll yell at me if I ask the question.
No, you're
for you.
fine.
Do you foresee any future bus drop-offs or shuttle drop-offs, or just
No,
parents in single cars? Okay,
yeah, no.
thanks.
I will not be
question for-
dealing with busing.
I have a question for Brad. And that is, I see that the present land use is B2,
Correct.
which is actually a business.
Correct. That's B2. And it's
Zoning.
also the mixed overlay district. So it can be residential
It can be
and
either or.
business.
Okay.
And I do believe kind of what you're thinking, or what most are thinking, there is residential in there. When I say residential, that's existing non-conforming. So people are living in these houses. It's not zoned residential, but it has been residential. So it's an existing non-conforming use.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So the.
Which one is existing non-conforming? The business?
Existing, so people are living in these houses that are zone B2
On First Street.
yes, on First. What that is existing non-conforming. So it's not a business, they're using it as residential, but it is zoned business to general business.
So I was actually curious about the reverse, which is where I think Jeff was going. It's like, there's no change in zoning here.
Correct.
So I was curious, why?
This is just this is a special use request in the B2 district.
And it's already zone B2. Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
And is a center like this listed as in our code ordinance as a special use?
Yes.
An allowed special use for that, but you have to go through the special use hearing.
Yes, it's not a
For-
permitted use, it's a special use, which
Okay.
brings them to this point where it now becomes a recommendation that gets voted on by the village board for a special use.
So Brad, so the houses that are located on First in that block are the ones that are B2, correct?
Yes, there was
But the houses that are located on Second, I think,
Yes.
are,
So if you're looking at that zoning map that was provided,
yep.
so the red or pinkish color, that's all B2. So I believe you're speaking to the east.
My printer was broken. My fellow
Okay, so
partner here
Second-
led me his, but his is
Yeah,
black
oh,
and white.
okay, Second. Okay, so Second Avenue is
hand that over.
residential.
Is R1?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, look at this nice color copy, thank you.
But there is, I mean, we all know that there are people living in these houses on North First Avenue, and they're not businesses. So, but that's an existing non-conforming. So if they stop, let's say, for instance, somebody moves out of a house and it becomes vacant. If it sits vacant and is not being used as residential for 1 year, it reverts to the zoning, which is B2.
Right.
So
And then they could put a business in there without coming to us if it doesn't require a special use.
Yes, correct.
And that would be the case even if it didn't sit for a year.
Yes.
Sitting for a year is what prevents it from being reoccupied as residential.
Yes.
Got it. But they could turn into a business a month later.
Correct.
So when we think about the impact, obviously we're making decisions based on the impact to the community and neighbors. What are some examples of B2 businesses that could have gone in there that could have been equally or more impactful on the neighborhood?
Well, I mean, we have a list of permitted uses in B2, so a list of permitted uses would be everything that's in B1, and then it builds on that from B1, it goes to B2, which is general business.
Can they put a restaurant there, for example?
B2 can have a restaurant, yes.
So if they wanted to put a restaurant in this building, they wouldn't have to ask our permission?
Correct.
Okay.
So there is a list of 45 permitted uses in B2 without me, reading through them. So example, banks, savings loan, bookstore, candy store, carpet rug store, et cetera, et cetera. It's general business.
I
Back to
heard
the
some concerns
parking.
about noise. Is there a noise ordinance the village has that
I do believe, I mean, that would be in the police That would be in Title IX, correct?
There is an ordinance that prohibits unreasonably loud and disturbing noises. No, I can't fathom an activity that they would be engaging in unless they're doing, air horn crafts or something that would fall within the scope of unreasonably loud and disturbing. So it lops off the poles, but not normal daycare activities wouldn't be prohibited by that ordinance. We don't have a decibel level or a distance from the property lines.
Okay.
Your evening date nights, I'm assuming because of the age of the children, aren't going to be going till midnight, right? I mean, these are going to be early evening date nights.
No, we've talked about going from like 6 to 8 or 5 to 7, somewhere in that pocket of time, just long enough to be able to go out to dinner and come back. Another thing with this age group is it is incredibly impossible to get coats, gloves, hats, scarves, snow boots on kids of this age. So the chances of us being outside when the weather is below, I don't even know, 40, 45, 50. I mean, it gets complicated taking little kids outside in the elements. So there will be probably a span of months where we're probably not going to be outside if the weather is of a certain temperature. So that's another thing to consider. I am planning on being completely closed the entire month of August, and then starting preschool September, like right after Labor Day. I can potentially have a few summer camp opportunities in my classrooms for that, again, that age range. As I want. The nice thing for me is my break-even point comes with just the preschool programming. So I don't want to go into this endeavor and make my life come, like I'm a mom of 3 too. So I don't want to book it so solid that I never get to breathe. The original date night intentions were for your 4th Thursdays where the town has something, or even I've even thought about offering it during the Pumpkin Festival run, where you want to go run, drop off your kids during the time, the 2-hour window of the run that weekend, and things like that, where we just can help parents have opportunities to do things in our town that, it's hard to get a babysitter and a reliable babysitter. And so those are just some of our thoughts, especially with owning a building. We looked into renting a couple properties too, and with owning it, we felt like we could be able to create some opportunities that, aren't out there right now.
Would you hand me back my packet?
Thank you. For parking, you said you are in discussions with the church.
I have the lease agreement.
As far as, and so do they have a number of spots that they're going to let you use?
I will have the full lot with private signage that it is strictly for Spark Academy at all times. So it will become a private lot just for my use. So they said currently nobody really parks there except for there's some random people in the neighborhood that park there, but they said that it would be, once I sign the agreement with them, that would become a full private lot just for my use.
So how does a special use expire on a property?
It continues, goes with the
business,
property. Yeah. But so I guess I want to touch back. I think what maybe Craig you were inquiring about, the permitted uses, I believe, are permitted uses. The reason there's a list of them is they are seen as not having an impact, these types of businesses. The reason this and other ones are special uses because there's a potential for some kind of impact in that area, and that's why it's a special use. So maybe in certain areas it's not appropriate, or it's more of an impact or a negative impact or a positive impact. So that's why I believe this falls under the special use category.
But a restaurant is not under special use?
Correct.
Okay. Any?
Michelle, you may know this. Is this the 709 bus route? Do they take the street or do they run on Main?
I do not know that.
The only reason you would have think the only reason you would have a bus run down that street would be coming from one place to get to Jefferson or the high school. I don't know if they, and like our only busing in 709 for that street, because that's walkable distance, and we have crossing guards, would be if you had a special education student. So like I do know of a situation where there is a bus pickup. It would be down a block on First. There's a house on the corner that there is some busing there for special education students.
Okay.
But for a gen ed student, like a large bus would have no reason to pick
Yeah, I
up or
didn't know if
drop
that was
off
the
on that
bus route, if you
street.
had parents coming in the morning and that was the bus route. or-
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
know
I'm
what it is,
hoping
so.
to avoid get all schools settled,
Yeah.
get the high school kids settled, get elementary kids settled, and then have my traffic come through.
Gotcha.
Just so that, because I've noticed when First Avenue is busy, it's that before school time when parents are shuttling between junior high and Jefferson, or trying to get from Lincoln to junior high or whatever. And then it seems like in the evening hours when I'm dropping my kids off at like Center Stage Dance, and we're going from my mom's house on North Kansas and coming through, sometimes I will go down First Avenue if there's traffic backed up. And so occasionally I see, traffic at that point, but
Yeah, I didn't.
nothing super heavy. I mean, I know the appraisal that I got back on the building said that it's 800 cars a day that go down First Avenue, but.
Okay, so are there any other comments? How about, is there any discussion that we'd like to have with one another?
So lady in the back row raising her hand.
Oh, yes, you, please come to the microphone if you'd like to make another comment.
I would just like to comment that you said, gloves and scarves and stuff, that you wouldn't be doing that, but when Chrissy and I and everybody in the neighborhood would be outside, wouldn't be during that weather either. It would be in the summer when it would be convenient for you to take the kids out to play. So. And also, most of those houses on that street are residential, except for the hair salon on the corner by the utility office parking lot. And they get very few customers in and out. They're not outside screaming and carrying on. The restaurant on on Main Street, Kemp, it actually is a restaurant, but it's quiet. Like, people come and go, but they're not out there, yay, So that's my concern, is really the big concern is the noise, so. Thank you.
Hearing no other discussion, is there anybody who would propose to make a motion?
Before a motion is made, I just want to say that I'll be abstaining from this vote because of an employment relationship that I have with Mrs. Peterson, the school district.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, any of these houses on that block of First Street, I mean, they are in the business district. I mean, truth of the matter is any of them, and in fact, all of them could be businesses.
They could be.
At any point,
It could be turned into a restaurant district.
Yeah, I mean, they could house all different levels of noise. I get the noise concern, but any of them could do that at any point.
Yeah.
That's right.
There's still a public option right now. Can I say that?
I don't know, we haven't closed the public hearing, so I think, I think you could comment.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
So my name is Stephen Peterson, husband to Michelle, and as a parent to 3 kiddos, I understand the concern for the nuisance and the noise. I respect that as neighbors in the area. I will say that you can't go very far in Morton without hearing noise from band and various other things throughout the years. and throughout the different seasons of what Morton has to offer. I feel we've come to love this community and the opportunities that Morton has provided for not only our family, but for the people and the neighbors that we have. My wife mentioned it, but there would be options for contingencies too, and we want to make sure that the neighborhood would embrace this. This is not something we would want to put wedges between neighbors. If that means nothing at night and only between the hours of 8 and 3 or something of that nature, we could have those conversations and work with the board and the trustees to make that happen. But I just appreciate the opportunity to even propose a business in the community is something that not everybody gets the opportunity to do. And so on behalf of my wife and our family, just wanted to say thank you for that.
So what are the options for having a contingency on a special use? Can there be a contingency imposed?
You can impose reasonable conditions on the award of the special use.
Okay.
Those would need to be reflected in the motion for
Okay.
the movement is. One other suggestion, I know there's been a lot of interest in speaking tonight. Unless anybody has present desire to add more comment, I might suggest closing the public hearing on this case just to avoid a continued dialogue as we
Okay.
further discussion.
Okay. Does that take a motion to close the hearing on this?
No, that can be your action. You can.
Okay. Well, we are now closing the public hearing on that petition, but we can continue to talk about it. And so I'm going to say something, I'm just thinking out loud here, and that is the possibility of the petitioner coming back to a future meeting with those contingencies in place or proposed so that can be part of our motion. I don't know if there's a time element here.
They got a closing on the 3rd of August.
Oh, okay.
I also feel like we've done this, I think, in previous meetings where we've gone back and forth about contingencies, and then we kind of say we don't want to set the precedent of having contingencies, and we don't want to constrain the business owner too much. So I'm kind of just hesitant to putting contingencies on there. I can see both sides in this situation. If I were living behind this address, I would probably be annoyed at the idea of children screaming. I have my own that I can only tolerate for so many hours, right? So I get that. I also understand that is a business district, and so there are going to be certain entities that may be there that I would maybe not be happy with either, right? And I feel like hopefully there is some good faith there that they're going to be respectful neighbors, and if you have an occasional evening babysitting thing, like Michelle said, she doesn't want it to be every night, that would be very annoying to have every night. So hopefully the business owner will take it on themselves to be a respectful neighbor.
Thank you for those comments. Any other comments?
Brad,
or a motion?
Is the village entertaining putting a crosswalk there? Do you know?
I mean, that would be up to the village board. I mean, I don't want to speak for.
Can I jump in there? Site plan review. So change of use, trigger site plan review. One of the considerations site plan review would be traffic patterns and any requirements as a part of site plan review. One of those could be the installation of a crosswalk. So
I'm confused. I was looking it up on Google Earth, and the church sits, I should know this direction. Is that north? North of the building, right? North. So do they own 2 parking lots? So the parking lot that you are discussing with them would be the parking lot. I guess they're not supposed to talk anymore, right? So the parking lot is the one that's directly across from.
Yes.
It's kind of a freestanding parking lot there.
And you can ask questions of people.
Yes, it shows up.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it shows up as when you're on that zoning map. There's a blank area. A little darker area would be a structure. A little lighter, if you notice, that's the parking lot.
Okay.
It's being referenced.
I'm not an expert on crosswalks by any means, but I would guess that the likelihood of one being allowed in the middle of a street and not at a corner, I think the village would be reluctant to grant that, but I could be wrong about that, but just saying I
don't want to
usually
speak.
see-
I mean, that would be the Director of Public Works. That would be more his area or his expertise.
Just judging
Yeah,
from my
definitely pretty
experience.
atypical.
Yeah,
Right.
my experience with the school district, I mean, there are places we would like to have them in the middle. And so I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm saying I think they tend not to put them in the middle and tend to go to a corner. But maybe they'll make a change.
Yeah, I would actually, given the amount of foot traffic across that area there, I mean, I've been on that road before. They speed, I mean, nobody's going real slow down that road. So I'd probably actually welcome that crosswalk, even though it would slow things down. But I'd be hesitant to, obviously we don't know if they're going to do that, but approve it knowing that you're going to have people hurrying or putting people in a dangerous situation getting across the road there. Is my only concern. Obviously, I've asked plenty of questions about that, but yeah.
And the speed limit, is it 25 on that street? Do you know?
I would guess 30. But
Well, I know in the village, if it's not posted, it's 30. And I don't know if
I know if I'm driving down Jefferson, right at First, it changes to 25. So like on Jefferson between First and Main is 25. But I don't know.
and that would be in the,
You're coming to a light and in the center town. But I don't know what it is actually on First.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve petition number 21-02 SP as stated.
I'll second.
And a second.
Keach,
Yes.
Knapp,
Yes.
Opperly,
Yes.
Ritterbusch,
Yes.
Smog,
abstain?
DeWeese,
Yes.
Root.
Okay, moving on to petition number 21-03ZA. We open up the public hearing for this. Subject property is located at 101 North Morton Avenue. A petition has been filed by Krista Stroll. The petitioner is requesting a zoning change from B2 to R1. And is the petitioner here tonight? Okay, would you like to make some comments for us?
Please hold swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Hi, I'm Krista Stroll. I live in Tremont, and I am purchasing this property over at 101 Main Street for my daughter. Eventually, she's almost out of high school, and so then she'll be needing a job, and she's planning on going to hair school, and it'd be a perfect property for her to live in the front half of it and do the hair in the back half, which was at one point a hair salon before. It needs just a lot of renovation, but our plan is to improve the yard, landscaping, the exterior, and then of course we're going to probably gut the whole inside too.
Okay, so is this a case where it's a B2 that was vacated and now it automatically it cannot be a residence anymore, and now the petitioner's asking for an R1 so that they can live in it? Is that
Correct, yes.
okay?
Did I hear, could you repeat the address again?
It's 101 North Main Avenue. It sits right behind Miller Paint.
You mean Morton Avenue, don't you?
Morton Avenue. What am I saying?
You
Morton
said
Avenue?
Main.
I'm sorry. North Morton Avenue, 101.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And this is surrounded by business zoning. Do we have any situations where we have residential that's surrounded by B zoning?
Actually, our previous case has some similar, I mean, there is some residential to the north of that business. If you look back on that zoning map on basically the corner of Monroe and First. So, I mean, yes, it is. It does exist, if that's the question.
But we always look at residential as lowering the impact, not raising the impact on the area. Is that accurate? Or maybe that's a philosophy, I don't know.
Correct. I just think it's probably a matter of what's best for that area as far as the zoning, what's the impact for the surrounding lots as well in the neighborhood.
I have heard from the business that's right in front of it, which is Miller Paint, and they've written a letter saying that they're excited to have that house restored back to the condition that it used to be in, where, and I believe it was residential, and had the hair salon in the back too, so they're looking forward to it.
So I saw something in the notes about having it surveyed. It looks like there's a garage hanging over the property line or something like that?
Yeah, they built the garage over the property line, so we had it resurveyed. I think they added like 15 feet to the backyard portion of
Okay,
it.
so your property will actually, your buildings will actually fit on your property after this
Yes.
transaction? Okay. Any other questions for the petitioner?
So some communities, don't they just allow you to have a resident in a B2?
There are overall two theories of zoning. One where, and this builds a little bit on what Craig asked, but one in which higher order uses are allowed in lower order districts, and the highest order use is residential, and then commercial, and then industrial. Yeah. So some communities, not Morton and usually smaller communities, but some communities allow you to have residential and commercial.
Right. So some communities, this wouldn't come across. They would just be allowed to do that.
Correct.
And this is not in our mixed use.
Correct.
Overlay.
This is not mixed use.
It's not in the mixed use overlay?
No, not this area.
Okay.
I will say the property to the north that has been used as residential, it is now vacant. So that was an existing non-conforming, along with the property that Krista is speaking of. And then to the north is Libby's, and then south Miller Paint, and then Plaza, if you look to the far west.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome, thank you.
Is there
Appreciate
anybody
it.
from the public who would like to make a comment about this petition? Seeing none.
I have a question. Like other petitions, were adjacent property owners notified?
Yes, a letter was sent to every property owner within 250 feet.
And there were no protests or?
I did not receive anything from anyone.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Further discussion? Or a motion?
I move to approve.
We have a motion. Craig? A second?
I'll second.
And a second.
Neff.
Yes.
Ritterbusch.
Yes.
Smock.
Yes.
Hopperly.
No.
DeWeese.
Yes.
Keach.
Yes.
Approved.
Okay, so finally, we have a hearing on an ordinance amending Title 10, Chapter 4 of the Village Code of the Village of Morton to provide amendments regarding front yard setbacks. Would you like to give us some background on that, Brad?
Yes, so in your packet you have the ordinance and you have a map that should look like this. So what we're doing is we're just replacing a map that was currently in the ordinance, and we're replacing it with this. The geographic area does not change. We just believe this gives a little more clarity and it's easier to read. It's easier for anybody to just look at it and know if they're in the reduced front yard area. The reduced front yard area has always existed. That's not changing. But the verbiage is adding actual numbers in there. So For example, if you have a 25-yard front setback and you fall within this geographic area, you would have a reduced of 18 foot 9 inches, and so on based on whatever zoning district you're in, whether it's residential, business, industrial. So I believe what we're doing here is just making it a little easier to interpret for anybody that wants to.
So these setbacks that are in this ordinance have always been in the
Yes.
in the ordinance?
Yes, just not spelled out clearly.
Okay.
And building on that, there was a slight discrepancy between the language of the code and what had been long-term prevailing practice. Language of the code allowed reduction to 10 feet, but it had always been interpreted as a 25% reduction, not a reduction to 10 feet in any district.
Okay.
The other issue was that the substantive provision was in 10.4.3, and it modified district-specific regulations. So what we've been trying to do overall, we've had a couple other cases like this. If you want to know what the standards are in residential district, you shouldn't have to read 10.5.3 for the R1 standards and then go back to 10.4.3 subparagraph G for the modifiers. We've been putting district-specific regulations in the section for that district to improve clarity, because if you read 10.5.3 and didn't know to look in 10.4.3, you'd arrive at the wrong answer on what your setback is if you own property within this district.
So I did notice on Washington Street, the southwest side, down almost, well, to where it's using the 7th, that's not colored red. And so you're telling me this is actually already existing, so my question's probably not relevant. But that side of the street, they have houses, I mean, those are old homes too, right up on the street. So I was just curious what the methodology, but if it's been existing, I guess that doesn't matter.
Yeah, to be clear, that map has not changed. This map is the same geographic area that Roger used for 26 years that he was here and was here before he started. So, you know, how they derived on this, I don't know. I don't know if any of us could go back and find that out.
So then my next question is and this is just tell me if I'm right. So I live right there on Washington Street, and my house is up on the property, like all my neighbors, 18 feet, but we got 150-foot lots. So if our house is burnt down, we'd be required to rebuild back at 25 foot back rather than.
Well, at 150, you would have had a 35-foot setback.
But then it was accepted.
Which would go down to the 26.9.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Which is 26.9.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'd have to. And right now, my house and all my neighbors are at about 19 foot off the property line. So if anything happened to our houses, we'd all have to move back, or is there a process in place where we could get an exception?
There's an existing exception when essentially you're on a side of the street and your neighbors there's a different setback observed on your side of the street. House in the middle of the block burns down, and the house to the left, house right has a 15-foot setback. An exception allows you to go to that same setback as what is observed by the neighbors.
Okay.
So you could conform with that.
Right. Yeah, like a tornado or something. Then, yes, which is just funny, this map, the red area across the street, those houses are like 10 foot off the, I mean, they're really close to the property line, but they're not, it's not in the accepted reduced front yard map. So anyway, I'm wasting everybody's time.
Any other discussion to be had at this table? Is there anybody from the public who would like to make a comment? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the changes to the chapter 4.
Second.
And a second.
Keach.
Yes.
Ritterbusch.
Yes.
Smock.
Yes.
DeWeese.
Yes.
Hopperly.
Yes.
Net.
Yes.
Approved.
Okay, so we have now closed the public hearing portion of our meeting. Are there any other business? Brad, do you have anything?
I have nothing tonight.
Okay. Then let's find a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
And a second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourned.